Okay, welcome back. So I started this on another video and realized I was leaving a lot of empty space here and it was distorting the shape of the cone. So I'm starting again. So you can kind of see my ghost lines, the original lines that I had there. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make a cone that is like this. A cone is like an ice cream cone. We usually see them this way for holding an ice cream cone, but we're going to have it sitting this way on our tabletop. And because it's curved like a circle, it's based on a circle at the bottom, right? But it comes to a point at the top like a triangle, like the pyramid did, but it's curved following the formula or the form of the sphere here, the circle here. So we need to leave room for it to curve at the bottom. It's going to be below our eye level too, but we're not going to bother with the horizon line and all that stuff on this one. It's based on a triangle and a circle, okay? And because of that, it's a curved surface, unlike the pyramid is. So we're going to have to include an ellipse at the bottom and a triangle at the top to create our cone. Let's make it, I want to change the direction sheet. Number 4 is for the cone on the direction sheet. Remember, you have these directions embedded in the assignment at Canvas. You can either see them on the page as a photograph, or you can view them as PDF in a link, okay? But I want you to change the directions to making it a 5-inch long cone instead of 4 inches. And we're going to move that line down a little lower than I did in the first version of this that I did. So we're going to follow all the other directions though. We're just going to change the length of this and that'll adjust the shape of it a little bit. So near the middle of the page from side to side, put your ruler at the fold at the top at 0. The 0 is right at the fold. I'm going to use my same line that I started with. On the direction sheet, it calls this a central axis, the line that we're drawing. If you imagine a line going right in the middle of the cone, and I'll show you in a second, we call that a central axis, that the cone could rotate around, spin around, all right? We're going to measure it from 1/2 inch down, starting there, 1/2 inch from the fold down, and we're going to make it 5 inches long instead of 4, so it's going to stop there, all right? It's going to be a straight up and down line, so you want to make sure it's parallel to the outer edges and at a 90-degree angle to the top and the bottom of the paper or the fold. And it's going to be, it's going to stop at 5.5. My bad. Please forgive me. All right, so it's going to go to 5.5. We started 1/2 inch down, so to make it a 5-inch long, 4-inch long line from there, we have to go to 5.5. A 5-inch long line, we have to go to 5.5. I hope I'm not confusing you. Okay, so we started at 1/2 inch down. We started a line that goes 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches, 5 inches to 5.5 inches long, all right? Sorry if I confused you. So it's about 1/2 inch from the bottom of the paper, just above your label. Now, we want to put a rectangle at the base of it, like we have here, for the curvature of the ellipse that will be on our cone. It'll be something like this, but in reverse, right? We're not going to see the back edge. We'll only see the front edge because it's below our eye level, and we won't be able to see through it, just like you can't see my finger at the back edge when I rotate it this way. But we need to use both the back edge and the front edge to make it a convincing curvature for the front edge that we see. So I like to draw the whole rectangle and use the whole rectangle, even though I'm just going to erase most of it or half of it and just have the front half. All right. Now here's what I was talking about with a central axis like we just drew. If you can imagine me putting a little pin or a rod right in the middle, from here to here, here to here, and everywhere else, right in the middle, going through my object to the middle at the top, and it could rotate on it, turn on it. That's what we refer to as the central axis. It's in the center, and it helps to rotate it. Okay. So that's not on the outer edges like it was at the pyramid, it's on the inside of it. Okay, so we're going to measure down to create that rectangle like we've got here for the cones rectangle. I'm going to move over a little bit here, zoom in a little bit more so you can watch this more easily. So this rectangle, as the directions say, it's going to be 4 inches wide like this rectangle was for the ellipse. It's going to be 4 inches. So we're at the bottom of that line, put your ruler at 2. Half of the 4 inches is going to be to the left, half of the 4 inches to the right. So 2 inches and 2 inches. So right there at the bottom of that line with my ruler at 2 inches on the line, 2 inches over, 2 inches over. So that's about the same distance from the bottom of the page, but not necessarily completely accurate. Now we're going to do the same a little bit higher. It doesn't have to be any specific distance. The higher it is, the more accurate it will be. If they're really close, it's more likely that the lines will go crooked. So I'm going to put it up a little high, even though it might be too high. Okay? So it's maybe what, about a third of the way up, something like that. And it's at 2 inches along the central axis, mark it 0, and a mark it 4. So these are equally distant from the central axis, okay? Now, we're going to measure down from the top like we did here, from the fold of the paper, lining up my 2 marks here and here. I want to get rid of the one from my previous drawing. It doesn't belong, and it's not going to go away anyway. I just don't want to confuse myself, okay? So I'm lining up these 2 marks that are 2 inches away from the central axis. I put my rulers 0 at the fold like I did for that central axis. I line up my marks. And then remember, this one stopped at 5.5. So I'm going to start this one at 5.5, and I'm going to go up. It says 2 inches on the directions. So I'm going up 2 inches. Here's 1 inch, 2 inches at 3.5 inches. So I stop there, and I stop there. Now that's going to make a more believable cone than the first one that I did before I started again. I'm doing the same thing at the left-hand side, 0 at the fold, line up my 2 marks for the rectangle. Go, that looks pretty close. And I'm going to start my mark at 5.5 inches, which is right there. And I'm going 1 inch, 2 inches to the 3.5 inch mark. There's 3.5 right there. All right? So this is the same length as this. I could even measure to make sure. That's a little off. Nope, it's not. I was not looking at the ruler correctly. And this one, remember, is right there. Okay, so now I can line these bottom edges up. All of them should match up, including the central axis. A little bit off. I think it will be okay though. It's not even a 1/16 of an inch. Okay. All right, so there's our rectangle like we had for the ellipse over here, right, this one. Now we've got it even smaller from top to bottom than it is side to side, than the first ellipse. Now we need to measure, we've already measured from side to side with our central axis, but we need to measure from top to bottom on the side edges. These are 2 inches, so 1 inch down on either side. We'll divide those sides of our rectangle in half. And now we're going to do one more step before we do the curve. I want to draw in the peak of my cone, the apex of my cone, okay? The peak, the apex, and it starts right here at the halfway point, and here, not down here, but halfway up. Okay, so it's this is halfway from here to the back edge. Okay, so we're going to draw that in before we make our curve, and the reason is it's easy to do it wrong if you don't do this part first. Okay, make sure you go right to the point on the axis, on the rectangle, I'm sorry. And the same point at the peak here, or the apex. Okay, now we've got our triangle started, but we need to curve it to make our cone instead of a pyramid. Let's get rid of the central axis before we do any of that. Let's get rid of just that inside. Sorry about my big fat head. There we go. Might be easier if I was drawing on the side too. So I'm going to leave that part. I'm going to erase this part. So that's my measurement, right? So I'm leaving that there for now. And I'm going to leave that line for now because I want to draw my ellipse, all of it in that space. And then I'll erase this corner, and the back ellipse and leave just this one and erase those corners. Okay, so that's our next steps. Just like we did here, this is called drawing through. That way you know if this is too much, right? I know it can't go outside of that edge because this is the outer edge of the pyramid, of the cone, I'm sorry. So it needs to stand over here. There we go. So it's a gentle curve on the longer side and a more abrupt curve coming right to that edge, all right? Remember, turn your paper and continue the curve. Remember, don't let it become pinched. It's not a football, and you don't want to flatten it out either. Touches the line right at the tick mark, okay? On the outer edge at the side and the bottom edge right there. So this is a little pinch, but it's only because my tick mark is kind of sticking out. So I'll make sure I erase that eventually. And remember, it can't stick out of this edge. It has to stay inside of it as it curves back that way. I'm keeping it kind of light here because this is all going to get erased. The reason I'm drawing it is because it helps me to draw this side if I can draw this side too. It helps me to see if I've done it right or if I've got errors. This curvature, probably a little bit more like that. Okay, don't let it become pointy and don't let it flatten out anywhere, right? You don't want to meet up with the bottom before you get to that tick mark, so make sure that it kisses it right at the tick mark on the line all the way around. All right? Now, once you think you've got it, look at it objectively. Does this distance look the same as this distance? This one obviously isn't as important as the front edge, but it helps you to see any errors. Like I know now that this needs to come down a little bit more right in there, okay? And then I can start erasing. So once I've made sure, and I'm pretty close, not exactly there, but pretty close. Once you're all done with yours, erase the inside back edge, the rectangle. Careful not to erase the side edges that go from the outer edge to the apex, and get rid of your rectangle all the way around, and your tick marks. Remember, you should draw lightly enough that you don't see any lines left behind afterward. If you damage your cone by erasing the rectangle or any of the other lines, go back and redraw them, okay? I want to make my correction there too. So now I know I need to redraw some of this and some of that to make it a clean drawing, all right? And an accurate drawing. So go ahead and finish yours up, and then we're going to move on to the cylinder.